Welcome to Between the Covers, the mother-daughter book club, where we take romance fantasy to a whole new level. I'm Shirley.
And I'm Dawn.
We're reading chapter 2 today of Dark Prince by Christine Feehan.
Now, we left off where Raven was sitting at the dining table at the inn, and she was defending why she came to the Carpathian Mountains in the beginning.
Yeah.
So, if you'll take it from there, Mo.
All right. So we're going to start with the chapter 2 reading. Mikhail inhaled the night air as he moved slowly through the small town, seeking what he needed. Not a woman. He couldn't bear to touch another woman's flesh. He was aroused, dangerous in his highly sexual state, and far too close to turning. He might lose control. So he had to find a male for feeding. He moved among the people easily, returned greetings from those who knew him. He was well respected, even looked up to. He slipped behind a young man who was physically fit, strong. His scent spoke of health, veins bursting with life. After a brief, easy conversation, Mikhail spoke his command softly, and a friendly arm across the other shoulder. Deep within the shadow, he bent his dark head and fed well. He was careful to keep his emotions firmly in control. He liked this young man, knew his family. There could be no mistakes. He lifted his head. The first wave of her distress hit him. Raven. He had unconsciously been seeking contact with her, touching her mind gently to assure himself that she was still with him. Alert now. He finished his task quickly, releasing the young man from his trance, implanting the continuing conversation, laughing amicably, accepting the handshake with ease, steadying the man when he was a bit dizzy. Mikhail opened his mind, focused on the thread, and followed it. It had been years. His skills were rusty, but he could still see what he wanted. Raven was seated at a table with two couples. Outwardly, she looked beautiful, serene. But he knew better. He could feel her confusion, the unrelenting pain in her head, her desire to leap up and run from everyone. Her eyes, brilliant sapphires, were haunted, shadows in the paleness of her face. Strain showed in the telltale lines around her mouth. It amazed him how strong she was. There was no telepathic seepage. No way for anyone with telepathic ability other than he to know she was in distress. And then the man beside her leaned forward, looked into her eyes, raw longing on his face, desire in his eyes. "Come for a walk with me, Raven," he suggested, and his hand moved from the table to rest just above her knee. At once, the pain in Raven's head increased, crashing against her skull, stabbing at her behind her eyes. She jerked her leg out from under Jacob's hand. Demons leapt, raged, burst free. Never had Mikhail felt such terrible fury. It rushed over him, claimed him, became him. That someone could hurt her like that, so cautiously, without even knowing or caring that someone might touch her. She was so vulnerable and unprotected that a man would presume he put his hands on her. He hurtled through the sky, the cold air fanning his rage. Raven felt the force of his anger. The air in the room thickened outside. The wind rose, swirled fiendishly. Branches pelted the outside walls. The wind rattled ominously at the windows. Several waiters crossed themselves, looking with fright into the black, suddenly starless night. The room was unexpectedly, strangely silent, as if everyone was collectively holding his or her breath. Jacob gasped, his hands going to his throat, tearing at it as if strong, strangling fingers. His face was first red, then molted, his eyes bulging. Shelley screamed. A waiter ran to assist the choking man. People were standing, craning their necks to see what was happening. Raven forced calm into her slender body, emotions running too high for her to remain unscathed. Release him. Silence answered her, even with the waiter behind him, desperately working at the Heimlich maneuver. Jacob fell to his knees, his lips blue, his eyes rolling back in his head. Please, I'm asking you, please, release him for me. Jacob suddenly inhaled. A terrible gagging sound, labored and harsh. His sister and Margaret Summers crouched at his side, tears in their eyes. Instinctively, Raven moved toward the fallen man. Do not touch him. The command was stark, without any mental enhancement, more frightening than if he had forced her compliance. Raven was besieged with emotion. From everyone in the room, Jacob's pain and terror, Shelley's fear and the innkeeper's horror, the other Americans' shocked reaction. The frightening sensations were swamping her, beating at her already fragile state. But it was his all-consuming rage that sent needles shooting through her head. Her stomach heaved, cramped, and Raven nearly doubled over, looking around desperately for the ladies' room. If anyone touched her, tried to come to her aid, she might go mad. Raven. The voice was warm, sensual, caressing, calm in the eye of the storm, black velvet, beautiful, soothing. She knew that voice at once. A cautious hush fell in the dining room as Mikhail strode in. He had a hard arrogance about him, the air of complete command. He was tall, dark, well-muscled, but it was his eyes, burning with energy, with darkness of 1,000 secrets, that drew immediate attention. Those eyes could mesmerize, hypnotize, just like the power in his voice. He moved with purpose, sending waiters scurrying out of the way. Mikhail, it's such a pleasure to have you join us, the innkeeper gasped in surprise. He spared the woman a glance, his eyes sweeping over her buxom figure. I have come for Raven. We have a date this evening, he said softly, imperiously, and no one dared argue with him. She's challenged me to a game of chess. The innkeeper nodded her head as she spoke into a smile. Enjoy yourselves. Raven swayed, pressing her hands to her stomach. Her sapphire eyes were enormous, taking up her face at his approach. He was on her before she could move, his hands reaching out for her. Don't. She closed her eyes, terrified at his touch. She was already on overload. She would not be able to take the overbearing emotion radiating from him. Mikhail didn't hesitate. Gathering her into his arms, imprisoning her against his hard chest, his face was a granite mask as he whirled around and took her from the room. Behind them, the buzzing started, the hushed whispers. Raven tensed, waiting for the battery on her senses, but he had closed his mind, and all she knew was the enormous strength of his arms. He took her into the night, moving fluidly, easily, as if her weight was of no consequence. Breathe, little one. It will help. There was a trace of amusement in the warmth of his voice. Raven didn't, as he suggested, too worn out to struggle. She had come here to this wild, lonely place to heal, but instead she was all the more fragmented. She opened her eyes cautiously, looking up at him through long lashes. His hair was the color of dark coffee beans, a dark espresso, drawn back and tied at the nape of his neck. His face was that of an angel or a devil. Strength and power, with a sensational mouth that hinted at cruelty. His hooded eyes were black obsidian, black ice, pure black magic. She couldn't read him, couldn't feel his emotions, or hear his thoughts. That had never happened to her before. Put me down. I feel silly with you carrying me off like some pirate. His long strides were taking them into deep forest. Branches swayed, bushes rustled. Her heart was beating out of control. She tensed, pushed against his shoulders, struggled uselessly. His eyes moved possessively over her face, but his pace didn't slow. He didn't answer her. It was humiliating that he didn't appear to notice her struggle. Raven allowed her head to fall against his shoulder with a slight sigh. Did you kidnap me or rescue me? Strong white teeth gleamed at her, a predator's smile, a man's amusement, perhaps a little of both. Where are you taking me? She pressed a hand to her forehead, not wanting a battle, physical or mental. To my home. We have a date. I'm Mikhail Dobrinsky. Raven rubbed at her temple. Tonight might not be so good for me. I'm feeling, she broke off, catching a glimpse of a moving shadow pacing them. Her heart nearly stopped. She looked around, sighed a second, then a third. Her hand clutched his shoulder. Put me down, Dobrinsky. Mikhail, he corrected, not even slowing down. A smile softened the edges of his mouth. You see the wolves? She felt an indifferent shrug of his broad shoulders. Be calm, little one. They will not harm us. This is their home, as it is mine. We have an understanding, and are at peace with one another. Somehow she believed him. Are you going to hurt me? She asked the question softly, needing to know. His dark eyes touched her face again, thoughtful, holding 1,000 secrets, unmistakably possessive. I'm not a man who would hurt a woman in the way you're imagining, but I'm certain our relationship will not always be a comfortable one. You like to defy me, he answered as honestly as he was able. His eyes made her feel as if she belonged to him, as if he had a right to her. You were wrong to hurt Jacob, you know. You could have killed him. Do not defend him, little one. I allowed him to live to please you, but it would be no trouble to finish the task. Pleasurable even to feel his hands around the man's throat. No one had the right to put his hands on Mikhail's woman and hurt her. as that human had done. The inability of the male to see that he was causing Raven pain did not absolve him of his sin. You don't mean that. Jacob is harmless. He was attracted to me, she tried to explain gently. You will not speak his name to me. He touched you, put his hands on you. He stopped walking abruptly, there in the heart of the deep forest, as wild and untamed as the pack of wolves surrounding them. He was not even breathing heavily, though he had covered miles carrying her in his arms. His black eyes were merciless as they stared down into hers. He caused you much pain. Her breath caught in her throat as he lowered his dark head to hers. His mouth hovered inches from hers, so that she could feel the warmth of his breath on her skin. Do not disobey me in this, Raven. This man touched you, hurt you, and I will see no reason for his existence. Her eyes searched his hard, impeccable features. You're serious, aren't you? She did not want to feel the warmth spreading through her at his words. Jacob had hurt her. The pain was so intense that it had stolen her breath, and somehow, when no one else knew, Mikhail had known. Deadly serious. He began moving again with his round eating strides. Raven was silent, trying to work out the puzzle. She knew evil, had chased it, soaked it in the obscene, depraved mind of a serial killer. This man spoke cautiously of killing, and she believed absolutely that he was capable of doing exactly what he said. Yet she could feel no evil in him. She sensed that she was in danger, grave danger from Mikhail Dobrinsky, the man with unlimited power, arrogant in his strength, a man who believed he had a right to her. Mikhail, her slender frame was beginning to tremble. I want to go back. The dark eyes drifted over her face again, noting the shadows, the fear lingering in her blue gaze. Her heart was pounding, her slight body trembling in his arms. Go back to what? Death? Isolation? You have nothing with those people and everything with me. Going back is not your answer. Sooner or later, you will not be able to take their demands. They continually take pieces of your soul. You are much safer in my care. She pushed at the wall of his chest, found her hands trapped against the heat of his skin. He merely tightened his hold, amusement spreading warmth to the coldness of his eyes. You cannot fight me, Raven. I want to go back, Mikhail. She worked to keep her voice under control. She wasn't sure she was telling the truth. She feared he knew the truth before she even knew it. He was inside her mind, what she felt. He knew the price she had paid for her gift. The pull between them was so strong, she could hardly think straight. The house loomed up, dark, threatening, a rambling hulk of stone. Her fingers twisted in his shirt. Mikhail knew she was unsure of that nervous, telltale gesture. You're safe with me, Raven. I will not allow anyone or anything to harm you. She swallowed nervously as he pushed open the heavy iron gates and mounted the steps. Just you, she said under her breath, but knew he heard her. He allowed his chin to brush the top of her silky hair, feeling the jolt in the core of his body. Welcome to my home, he said, the words softly, wrapping her up in them, as if they were firelight or sunshine. Very slowly, reluctantly, he allowed her feet to touch the threshold. Mikhail reached past her to open the door, then stepped back. "Do you enter my home of your own free will?" he asked it formally, his eyes burning on her face, over it, dwelling on her soft mouth before returning to her large blue eyes. She was frightened. He could read it easily. A captive wild thing, wanting to trust him, yet unable to. Run to the ground, cornered, but still willing to fight with her last breath. She needed him almost as much as he needed her. She touched the door frame with a fingertip. "If I say no, will you take me back to the inn?" Why did she want to be with him when she knew he was dangerous? He wasn't pushing her. She had too much talent of her to not know. He looked so alone, so proud, yet his eyes burned over her with hungry need. He didn't answer her, didn't try to persuade her, simply stood in silence waiting. Raven sighed softly, knowing she was defeated. She had never known another human being she could just sit and talk with. Even touch without the bombardment of thoughts and emotions. That in itself was a type of seduction. She started across the threshold. Mikhail caught her arm. "Your own free will. Say it." "My own free will." She stepped into his home. Her lashes swept down. Raven missed the look of savage joy that lit his dark, chiseled features. But she felt the floor shift beneath her feet. An old, obscure myth rose up to haunt her. Never enter the home of a vampire of your own free will. It gives him power over you. Shivering, she turned as if she might step back across the ancient threshold. The heavy door swung closed behind Raven with the thud of finality. She shivered again and rubbed her arms nervously. What was she thinking? That he was a legend? A myth? Some creature stepping out of the pages of a novel? Frowning, she shook her head to clear her thoughts. Mikhail whirled a cape around her, enveloping her in warmth. In his woodsy masculine scent, he strode across the marble floor to throw open the doors to the library. Within minutes, he had a fire roaring. He indicated a chair near the flames. It was high-backed, deep-cushioned, an antique, yet curiously not worn. Raven studied the room with awe. It was large, with beautiful hardwood floor. Each parquet tile was a part of a larger mosaic. On 3 sides, there were floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, completely filled with books, most leather-bound, many very old. The chairs were comfortable. The small table between the chairs, an antique in perfect condition. The chessboard was marble, the pieces uniquely carved. "Drink this." She nearly jumped out of her skin when he appeared beside her with a crystal glass. "I don't drink alcohol." He smiled, the smile that made her heart beat faster. His acute sense of smell had already processed that particular bit of information about her. "It's not alcohol. It's an herb mixture for your headache." Alarm slammed into her. She was crazy for being here. It was like trying to relax with a wild tiger in the room. He could do anything to her, and no one would come to help. If he drugged her, decisively, she shook her head. "No, thank you." "Raven," his voice low, caressing, hypnotic, "obey me." She found her fingers curling around the glass. She fought the order. Pain sliced through her head so that she cried out. Mikhail was at her side, looming over her, his hand closing over hers around the fragile glass. Why do you defy me over so trivial a thing? There were tears burning in her throat. Why would you force me? His hand found her throat, circled it, lifted her chin. Because you're in pain, and I wish to ease it. Her eyes widened in astonishment. Could it be so simple? She was in pain, and he wanted to ease it? Was he really that protective, or did he enjoy imposing his will? It's my choice. And that's what free will is about. I could see pain in your eyes, feel it in your body, knowing I can help you. Is it logical for me to allow you to continue to hurt yourself just so you could prove something? There was genuine puzzlement in his voice. Raven, if I was going to harm you, I would not need to drug you. Allow me to help you. Asking her cost him nothing but a heartbeat of time. If she didn't comply, well, he was going to ensure the pain stopped one way or another. His thumb moved over her skin, feather-light, sensuous, tracing the pulse on her neck, as though fascinated by it, moving over the delicate line of her jaw, and stroked the fullness of her lower lip. She closed her eyes and let him put the glass to her mouth, tilt the bittersweet contents down her throat. She felt as if she was placing her life in his hands. There was too far much possession in his touch. Relax, little one. Tell me about yourself. How is it that you can hear my thoughts? His strong fingers found her temples and began a soothing rhythm. I've always been able to hear thoughts, especially if they're very strong. When I was little, I just assumed everyone else could do the same thing. But it was terrible to know other people's innermost thoughts, their secrets. I heard and felt things every minute of the day. As a rule, Raven had never talked about her life, her childhood, to anyone, least of all a complete stranger. Yet Mikhail did not feel like a stranger. He felt like a part of her, a piece missing from her soul. It seemed important to tell him. My father thought I was a freak, a demon child, and even my mother was a little afraid of me. I learned never to touch people, not to be in crowds. It was better to be alone in places of solitude, and it was the only way I could stay sane. Gleaming teeth bared above her head, a predator's menace. He wanted to be alone with her father for a few minutes, to show him what a demon really was. It interested him, yet alarmed him, that her words would bring about such rage in him. To know she was alone so long ago, had endured pain and loneliness when he was in the world, angered him. Why hadn't he gone looking for her? Why hadn't her father loved and cherished her as he should have? His hands worked magic, slipping to the nape of her neck, his fingers strong, hypnotic. She continued, mostly because of those strong fingers were mesmerizing and relaxing. A few years ago, a man was murdering families, small children. I was staying with a friend from high school, and when I returned after work, I found them all dead. When I went into the house, I could feel his evil. I knew his thoughts. It made me sick, the terrible things running around in my head. But I was able to track him and finally lead the police to him. His hands smoothed down the length of her thick braid, found the tie, and loosened the heavy mass of silk tunneling his fingers to release the woven strands, still damp from her shower hours before. How many times did you do this thing? He knew she was leaving things out. The details of horror and pain. The faces of those she helped as they watched her work, shocked, fascinated, yet repulsed by her ability. He saw those details, sharing her mind, reading her memories to learn her true nature. 4. I went after 4 killers. The last time, I fell apart. He was so sick, so evil. I felt as if I was unclean, as if I could never get him out of my head. I came here hoping to find peace. I decided I would never do anything like that again. Mikhail above her closed his eyes for a moment to calm his mind. It shocked and saddened him that she could feel unclean. He could look into her heart and soul and see her every secret, knew she was light and compassion, courage and gentleness. The things she had seen in her young life should never have been. He waited until his voice was calm and soothing. And you get these headaches if you use your telepathic communication? At her solemn nod, he continued, Yet when you heard me, unguarded, in pain, you reached out to me, knowing the price you would pay. How could she explain? He was like a wounded animal, radiating so much pain that she found tears streaming unchecked down her face. His loneliness was hers. His isolation, hers. She even realized that on some level, he hadn't believed he was experiencing real pain and loneliness, that he thought himself incapable of those feelings. She had also sensed his resolve to end his pain, his existence. She couldn't let that happen, no matter what the cost to her. Mikhail let out a breath slowly, astonished and shocked by her nature, so giving. She was hesitant to put into words why she reached out to him, but he knew it was her nature to give. He also knew the call had been so strong because it's something in him that reached for her had found whatever it needed. He inhaled her scent, taking her into his body, enjoying the sight and smell of her in his home, the feel of her silky hair in his hands, her soft skin under his fingertips. The flames from the fire put blue lights in her hair. Need slammed into him, hard and urgent. And as painful as the ache was, he reveled in the fact that he could feel it. Mikhail seated himself across the small table from her, his eyes drifting lazily, possessively, over her all-alluring curves. Why do you dress in men's clothes? He asked. She laughed, soft and melodious, and her eyes lit with mischief. Because I knew it would annoy you. He threw back his head and laughed. Real, genuine, incredible laughter. There was happiness in him, and the stirrings of affection. He couldn't remember what those feelings were like, but the emotions were sharp and clear, and a sweet ache in his body. Is it necessary to annoy me? She arched an eyebrow at him, realizing that her headache was completely gone. So easy, Raven teased. He leaned closer. Disrespectful woman. So dangerous, you mean? Maybe that, too. She slid her hand through her hair, pushed it away from her face. The action was an innocent habit, incredibly sexy, drawing his gaze to the perfection of her face, the fullness of her breasts, and the smooth line of her throat. So just how good a chess player are you? She challenged, impetuously. An hour later, Mikhail leaned back in his chair to watch her face as she studied the board. She was frowning in concentration, trying to puzzle out his unfamiliar strategy. She could sense that he was leading her into a trap, but she couldn't find it. Even leaned her chin on the heel of her hand. Relaxed, in no hurry. She was patient and thorough, and twice had gotten him into trouble simply because he was too sure of himself. Suddenly, her eyes widened, a slow smile curving her mouth. You're a cunning devil, aren't you, Mikhail? But I think your cleverness may have gotten you into a bit of trouble. He watched her with hooded eyes. His teeth gleamed white in the firelight. Did I happen to mention, Miss Whitney, that the last person impertinent enough to beat me at chess was thrown in the dungeon and tortured for 30 years? I believe that would make you about 2 at the time, she teased, her eyes glued to the chessboard. He sucked in his breath sharply. He had been comfortable in her presence, felt totally accepted. She obviously believed he was mortal. With superior telepathic powers, Mikhail lazily reached across the board to make his move, saw the dawning comprehension on her eyes. I believe what we have here is checkmate, he said silkily. I should have known a man who walks in the forest surrounded by wolves would be devious. She smiled up at him. Great game, Mikhail. I really enjoyed it. Raven sank back into the cushions of the chair. Can you talk to animals? She asked curiously. He liked her in his home, liked the way the fire burned blue in her hair and the way the shadows clung to her so lovingly to her face. He had memorized every inch of her feminine features, knew that if he closed his eyes, the picture would still be there. High, delicate cheekbones, her small nose and lush mouth. Yes, he answered truthfully, not wanting lies between them. Would you have killed Jacob? Her lashes were beautiful and held his attention. Be careful what you ask, little one, he cautioned. I would give you the truth. She curled her legs beneath her, regarded him steadily. You know, Mikhail, you are so used to using your power, you don't even stop to think if it's right or wrong. He had no right to touch you. He was causing you pain. But he didn't know he was. And you had no right to touch me, but you did anyway, she pointed out reasonably. His eyes glittered. Arctic cold. Dangerously predatory. I have every right. You belong to me, he said calmly, his voice soft, with a hint of warning. His eyes gave way more than his tone. More important, Raven, I do not cause you pain. Raven's breath caught in her throat. Her tongue moistened her lips with a small, delicate gesture. Mikhail, her voice hesitant, as she chose her words carefully. I belong to myself. I'm a person, not something you can own. In any case, I live in the United States. I'm going back there soon, and I intend to be on the next train to Budapest. His smile was that of a hunter, predatory. For a moment, the firelight gleamed red, so that his eyes glowed like a wolf's in the night. He said nothing, simply watched her unblinkingly. Her hand fluttered defensively to her throat. It's late. I should be going. She could hear the pounding of her own heart. What was it she wanted from him? She didn't know. Only that this was the most perfect, frightening night of her life. And she wanted to see him again. He was utterly motionless, menacing in his complete stillness. She waited breathlessly. Fear was suffocating her, sending tremors through her slender form. Fear he would let her go. Fear he would force her to stay. She drew air into her lungs. Mikhail, I do not know what you want. She didn't know what she wanted either. He stood up then. power and grace combined. His shadow reached her before he did. His strength was enormous, but his touch was gentle as he pulled her to her feet. His hands slid up her arms, rested lightly on her shoulders, thumbs stroking the pulse in her neck. His touch sent warmth curling into her abdomen. She was so small beside him, so fragile and vulnerable. Do not try to leave me, little one. We need one another. His dark head bent lower, his mouth brushing her eyelids, sending little darts of fire licking along her skin. You make me remember what living is, he whispered in his mesmerizing voice. His mouth found the corners of hers, and a jolt of electricity sizzled through her body. Raven reached up to touch the shadowed line of his jaw, to place a hand on the heavy muscles of his chest, in an attempt to put space between them. Listen to me, Mikhail. Her voice was husky. We both know what loneliness is, what real isolation can do to a person. It's beyond my imagination that I can be this close to you, physically touch you, and not be swamped with unwanted burdens. But we can't do this. Amusement crept into the dark fire of his eyes, a hint of tenderness. His fingers curled around the nape of her neck. Oh, I think we can. His black velvet voice was pure seduction. His smile, frankly, sensual. Raven felt his power right down to her toes. Her body went boneless, liquid, aching. She was so close to him that she felt a part of him, surrounded by him, enveloped by him. I'm not going to sleep with someone I don't know because I'm lonely. He laughed softly, low and amused. Is that what you think? That you would be sleeping with me because you're lonely? His hand was at her throat again, stroking, caressing, heating her blood. This is why you will make love to me. This. His mouth fastened on hers. White heat, blue lightning. The ground shifted and rolled. Mikhail dragged her slender form against his male length, his body aggressive, his mouth dominating, sweeping her into a world of pure feeling. Raven could only cling to him, a safe anchor in a storm of turbulent emotions. A growl rumbled deep in his throat. Animal, feral, like that of an aroused wolf. His mouth moved to the soft, vulnerable line of her throat, down to rest on the pulse beating so frantically beneath her satin skin. Mikhail's arms tightened, pinning her against his body, possessive, certain, his hold unbreakable. Raven was on fire, kneading, burning, hot silk in his arms, her body pliant, liquid heat. She was moving against him restlessly, her breasts aching, nipples pushing erotically against the thin yarn of her sweater. His thumb brushed her nipple through the crocheted lace, sending waves of heat curling through her body, making her knees go weak, so that the only hard strength of his arms held her up. Get a little hot over there?
Saucy.
His mouth
Coffee's hot.
moved again. Yeah, blame the coffee. His tongue like a flame licking over her pulse. And then there was white hot heat, searing pain. Her body coiling with need, burning for him, craving him. Waves of desire beat at her. His mouth on her neck was producing a combination of pleasure and pain so intense she didn't know where one started and the other left off.
Madam. Whew.
His thumb tipped her head back, exposing her throat. His mouth clamped to her skin, his throat working as if he was devouring her, feeding on her, drinking her in. It burned, yet fed her own craving. Micaiah whispered something in his native tongue and lifted his head slightly, breaking the contact. Raven felt warm liquid running down her throat to her breast. Micaiah's tongue followed the path, sweeping across the creamy swell of her breast. Micaiah caught at her small waist, aware suddenly of the way his body raged at him for release. An animal's hunger so intensified he burned out of control. He had to have her right then. Every instinct he possessed rose up to claim her for his mate. A wave of dizziness swept over Raven as she clutched at his shirt to keep from falling. He swore softly, eloquently, a mixture of two languages, furious with himself as he cradled her in his arms protectively. I'm sorry, Micaiah. Raven was appalled, frightened at her weakness. The room was spinning. It was difficult to focus. Her neck throbbed and burned. He bent his dark head to kiss her gently. No, little one. I'm moving us too fast. Everything in his nature, beast and centuries-old Carpathian, raged at him to take what was his, to keep her. But he wanted her to come willingly. I feel funny, dizzy. He had been a bit out of control. The beast in him hungry to put his mark on her. Hungry for the sweet taste of her. His body on fire, demanding release. Discipline and control fought with instinctual predatory nature and won. He breathed away the animal instincts, carried her to the chair beside the fire. She deserved courtship. She deserved to know him, to come to feel affection, if not love, for him before he bound her to him. A human, a mortal. It was wrong. It was dangerous. He gently placed her on the cushions. I got a little carried away, Raven. It will pass soon. Let me get you a drink of water. Raven watched the flames in the fireplace, drifting a little while she waited for him. She didn't see him enter the room, but the flames leapt and danced as if a sudden draught had fed them. She blinked, and there he was, tall and handsome, like some hero in a storybook. She smiled at the fantasy. Mikhail wrapped his arm around her shoulders and partially holding her up while she drank. You really are extraordinary, she murmured, uncertain whether she was dreaming or not. It's good you think so, he pointed out, since I wish to spend time with you. She frowned. I think it could be a little dangerous spending time with you. He smiled at her, his black eyes catching the warmth from the fireplace. She couldn't help herself. She reached up to trace the incredible smile with a pat of her finger. Who had a mouth like that? Who had such white, perfect teeth? Such beautiful eyes? You should be pretty with all those lashes, she murmured, still not certain if she was dreaming. But your face is a little too rugged to be feminine. He caught her fingers and bit gently on them. I'm thankful for that, at least. A wolf howled. She turned her head toward the window to look out into the night. Outside, fog began to drift into the yard, curling its long tails around the trees. Mikhail rose abruptly, the smile fading from his face. Once again, his eyes glittered, and the red flames from the fire burned in his eyes. He swung around, his handsome features dark and menacing, his body lost its protective posture, all at once threatening and powerful. Stay, he ordered softly. He moved so fast that he blurred, closing the doors to his library. Turning to face the front door, Mikhail sent a silent call to his sentries. A lone wolf howled. A second answered. A third, until there was a united chorus. When the noise subsided, he waited, his face an impeccable granite mask. More mist drifted through the forest, tendrils of fog collecting, moving, massing outside his home. Mikhail lifted his arm, and his front door opened. The fog and mist seeped in, collected in pools until his foyer was thick with it. Slowly, the mist collected, bodies shimmered and became solid. Why do you disturb me this night? He challenged softly, his dark eyes glittering dangerously. A man stepped forward, his fingers clasped solidly in his life mate's. She looked pale and drawn, was obviously pregnant. We seek your counsel, Mikhail, and bring you news. That's the end of chapter 2. So, our thoughts about Mikhail and Raven at this point. Mikhail and Raven have had their chess match. She likes to annoy him. She feels that he's dangerous to her, but she's intrigued by him. And of course, we all know Mikhail thinks she belongs to him now. She's his. There's no other in the world for him but her. Now, mine and Don's both our favorite part of the chapter 2 is where Mikhail comes in to rescue her at the table. And that's where he finds that she's in pain. Raven felt the force of his anger. The air in the room thickened. Outside, the wind rose, whirled fiendishly. Branches pelted the outside walls. The wind rattled ominously at the windows. Several waiters crossed themselves, looking with fright out into the black, suddenly starless night. The room was unexpectedly, strangely silent, as if everyone was collectively holding his or her breath. That's one of my favorite parts, is it shows that his power is so immense that it's felt by everybody. I'm excited to see what news there could possibly be that's being brought by this group of people who have come to his home. So stay tuned for us with next week, and we'll discover what's in store. So that's a wrap on chapter 2 for Dark Prince. Why don't you join us for next week for chapter 3, and we'll see just how far these two are willing to go. So pour yourself another cup of coffee and join us again next week. Oh, and if you missed the chapter 1 reading, you can subscribe on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. The links will be in the description below so you never miss an episode. See you next week.